Okay, let's take a look here. That's off, that's off, that's off, that's on, and the stream seems to be live. Alright, so let's get into this then. Hello, Shadowcat back! It's Sunday, it's time for the Sunday Tabletop stream, and I'm excited for this one. Not just because that I fully intend to finish up this whole creature thing today, because we are absolutely finishing this today. There is no way around that. It must be done. But also because I've been working on a lot of other things for the whole Magic the Gathering module. Working on a few things, tweaking a few things, and I think I've got some good stuff for the future. I've even been using AI to kind of help me go through some of the admittedly skimpy lore that's in Magic the Gathering and trying to kind of... how do I want to put this? I'm trying to make everything as lore accurate as I can. I'm learning new things about the Magic the Gathering lore and just trying to make it the best that I can. Like, for example, just as a quick example before we get started, I learned that I'm not making a what was it called? Pre-mending Planeswalker? I think that was it. I think it's pre-mending. Actually, let me double check that, because I think that was it. And I want to make sure that I get my terminology right. So let me come back to that conversation that I was having. Was it mending? Yes, it was the mending. Now, I don't actually know what the mending was, except that it was a kind of rebalancing of the universe. I don't know if, I don't know if, like, the universe is kind of shifted and reset, or if this was some kind of ordained from on high kind of mending, but either way, it changed how Planeswalkers worked as a whole. Pre-mending, actually, when I think about it, when I think about how it works, it reminds me a lot of the Wheel of Time. Pre-mending is very much similar to how channelers were before the Dark One. Because prior to that, within the Age of Legends, they had channelers, and these channelers were incredibly powerful. They were godlike. Channelers in the Wheel of Time prior to the Dark One were capable of, if I had to scale it, I would say like city-sized feats. I mean, they could control the weather. They could influence entire populations. They could create life. And then, after the Dark One's prison was breached and the Dark One's influence was now set out on the world, you had the war, and a lot of those big channelers died off. And then the ones who were loyal to the Dark One ended up imprisoned in the edge of the Dark One's prison. And, you know, all that happened. And, you know, fast forward some hundreds of years later, after the world has shifted, everything has fallen apart, and humanity has been thrown back to the medieval ages, and the channelers that we have now are a pale shadow in comparison to what they used to be. The same thing seems to be true in Magic the Gathering when we talk about the mending. Prior to the mending, Planeswalkers were capable of literally walking into an area and just spawning entire armies. I mean, they didn't have, like, a goblin on the field here, or maybe 100 squirrel tokens over there. No, prior to the mending, a single Planeswalker was a walking army, because they could literally just raise their arms and summon in impossible numbers of anything they wanted. They could conjure spells that were just... they were ridiculous. They didn't just cast, like, Firestorm. They could raise an entire landscape under Fiery Armageddon. And in that way, it's actually not just, it doesn't just reflect the Wheel of Time and the way things changed before and after the Dark One. It also reminds me a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. If you dive deep into the Dungeons and Dragons lore and you follow the Spell Plague, prior to the Spell Plague, spell levels didn't necessarily stop at level 9. There were level 10, 11, and 12 spells in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, you could never play those spells. They didn't even exist before, or in first edition. But the point is that according to the lore, according to history, those spells existed, and those spells were the kind of things that could literally rip the gods out of the heavens, bind them in mortal form, and then subject them to whatever you wanted to do to them. Which is kind of one of the things that happened to Mystra, the god of, well, goddess really, of magic in Faerun. And after Mystra was killed, which created the Spell Plague, the new Mystra, who was born and took over that position, decided that, number one, I'm the new Mystra, deal with it, and number two, this is never happening again. And so, when the new Mystra rebuilt the Weave, which is what gives all wizards, sorcerers, etc. their magic abilities, Mystra just said, nope, capping it at level 9, you will never, ever do that to us again. And this seems to be what the mending was. Pre-mending, planeswalkers were basically gods, and I'll get to that in a second. Post-mending, however, they have been brought down. Post-mending, you see that they actually have to put in effort to do their summonings. It's much harder for them to travel across planes. They can still conjure an army, but it's a much smaller army. And their spells are much, much more reasonable. There's no more fiery Armageddon just at the wave of a hand. They can still conjure firestorms, just not on that scale. And what I found out is that that's actually more what I'm building. There's no way that I can touch what the planeswalkers were pre-mending. And even if I could, they would be so wildly unbalanced they'd be unplayable anyway. So, learning new things with the help of AI. That's what AI is for. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this. Before I pull everything up, though, I'm going to go ahead and say hi to everybody in the chat. I see that Blizzastar is in there. Hello, Blizz. Good to see you. I see that JP is in as well. Hello, JP. Good to see you, too. And Knight of Bawa. Bawa? I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that with 2 A's. Either way, Knight, it's good to see you, too. And Knight was the one that reminded me, it's like pre-mending, walkers were basically gods. Yeah. Got that. Which, I mean, it is severely cool. Don't get me wrong. The lore is severely cool. Just, for my purposes, I actually have to try and balance this stuff. Alright, so speaking of balancing, let's go ahead and get into this, because I want to make sure that we get these finished up. So we're going to need our browser, and we'll need our spreadsheet back. We've got all the creatures done. I don't really want to go back and refresh myself on those, but hey, if you want to go back and look at a creature, just let me know, and we can take like 5 seconds to do that. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, and this time around, I do have a page up here with all the classes on it. And so this is all the ones that we got to do. Some of them we've kind of done already. Others may not really be a thing. But we'll deal with them as we get through them. So we did start on these earlier when we first started doing the creature types before I had organized them into their very specific kind of subsections. So we got the advisor, and the advisor is just a +2 wisdom. We've got the ally, they're +2 charisma, because they have to work well with other people. I do need to balance these a little bit. So for example, I've got the archer over here with a +4 dexterity, which is totally fitting. However, if we're going to balance these, which means they only get a +2 bonus, then to give them a +4 dexterity means that I got to give them a penalty somewhere. And so, how do we penalize the archer? Because archers, I don't know. If we're giving them a +4 dexterity, we have to penalize either intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. And are archers smart? Yeah, they are. Archers are actually very smart. They have to understand how bows work, they have to be able to calculate trajectories and range finding, stuff like that. Are they wise? Also, yes. Don't ask me to explain that one, but I think they are, because when it comes to archery, a lot of it is math. That's true. However, in the moment, it's all intuition. Does this still fall under intelligence? And I mean, charisma? I don't know how to do this. So I either have to penalize one of those, or I have to take away 2 dexterity. And I'm not sure how to do it. I guess the best way to do it would probably just to take away 2 dexterity and not penalize anything else. It's probably for the best, actually. Okay. Just a +2 dexterity. We're going to do the same thing with the artificer. Except with the artificer. Artificers tend to be the kind that would shut themselves away in a workshop and not talk to a single person for a week. I think this is an absolutely fantastic opportunity for me to go ahead and just penalize their charisma. So it's going to be -2 charisma. And that should be good. Assassins. I gave them a +2 dexterity and a +2 intelligence. Both of which really important because assassins are rogues, and rogues need both of those. But again, I haven't given them a penalty. So I'll give them a -2 charisma as well. It's quick, it's easy, it's on point. Barbarians. I kind of feel the same way. +2 dexterity, +2 will. I'm just going to penalize their charisma because barbarians, they're not social. Okay, they're not as social. They're just not social with you. Bard. +2 dexterity, +2 charisma. Both very important, but we still need a negative penalty. And I know what I'm doing here. I'm going to penalize their intelligence. Why? Because only a bard would be dumb enough to roll to seduce literally every single monster they come across. Yes, I know, I'm being a little dismissive, but you know what? I'm sticking with it. Okay, berserkers. They're only getting a +2 dexterity, and I'm fine with that. Child, we're not using because I'm not letting you summon children and throw them into the meat grinder. Sorry, I'm just not allowing it. Citizens. Okay, citizen is a little bit weird to look at. The reason why I did citizens like this is because a citizen is supposed to represent just a normal person. As such, I'm not inclined to give them a whole lot of bonuses, but they still gotta get something, kinda, sorta. So, I'm gonna go ahead and give them just a +1 bonus to everything else. It's not enough for them to actually get a bonus in anything else. A +1 dexterity does not get you a +1 bonus, because it's only going to put you up to 11 dexterity. 11 intelligence, 11 wisdom, 11 charisma. You don't get a +1 bonus until you hit 12. So they still get no bonus, but they are a little bit better than just your average animal with no bonuses at all. I mean, the egg gets no bonuses because it's an egg. I think the citizens deserve a little bit better than an egg. Okay, clerics. Clerics are getting plus wisdom and plus charisma. They need a penalty somewhere, and since I'm giving them 2 high scores in soft stats, I'm going to penalize their other soft stats. It's going to be a -2 to intelligence. Now, does that mean that they're necessarily dumb? No, and I understand that, but clerics are more about the faith than they are the book learning. So, there we go. Clowns. I hate the fact that I had to add clowns. But there is an actual clown card. So it has to be done. Clowns. I gave them +2 dexterity because they do tricks. I gave them +2 charisma because they entertain. I'm going to go ahead and give them a -2 wisdom because they don't realize that nobody likes them. And I'm sticking by that one. Okay, coward is a +2 dexterity. I gave them that because they're good at running away. Same thing with the deserter. The detective, I gave a bonus to intelligence and wisdom. However, I'm going to actually penalize... I mean, technically speaking, I shouldn't give them both a bonus to intelligence and wisdom. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them a +2 dexterity. If I can spell dexterity. I'm going to give them a +2 to intelligence. And I'm going to give them a -2 to charisma. Why? Because when I hear detective, I cannot help but think of like the old-timey noir detectives who spend their entire time drinking because they're entirely antisocial. And also because they have a problem. But that's neither here nor there. So I'll do that. For the doctor. He's hard. And he's hard because a doctor doesn't really have room for not having anything good. They need the intelligence because doctors is smart. Do they need the wisdom? Well, yes they do because they need to be able to interpret things. But again, we're not penalizing their wisdom. We just don't have to benefit it. If you're a surgeon, you need really good dexterity. If you're a general doctor, you need good bedside manners. That's charisma. So what am I supposed to penalize here? I only have one of two options. I have to penalize something or take away a bonus. I guess I'll take away a bonus because I'm not penalizing anything. Doctors have to be good at everything. Okay, and JP said on the clowns, I assume, make it Pennywise. Look, I'm not making it Pennywise. You can make it Pennywise. Okay, there are clowns. I know there be clowns. So, hold on. We got the clown car here, I believe. No, that's the Infinity one. Which one was it? Infinity Common. There was a clown in here that is actual... Ah, here we go. It's this one. This one is from the Duskmourn series. It's the Vicious Clown, okay? This is a human clown. It's a 2/3 red creature. And if you summon it, you can make it look like whatever you want. If you want your Vicious Clown to look like Pennywise, you can do that. Okay, and Blizzard Star says charisma or strength. I assume you mean for the doctor in terms of what to penalize. Well, I mean, there is such a thing as a doctor with poor bedside manner. In fact, I think that kind of describes doctors as a whole now that I think about it. I can't penalize strength, though. I can't, because strength and constitution are explicitly set by the card. So when we look at, like, the clown we gave 2 dexterity, 2 charisma, -2 wisdom. The reason why we do that is because the clown has power 2 and toughness 3. Which means that when we sit down to make the sheet for the clown, that's going to be a 12 strength, And since the clown gets dexterity, 12 dexterity, it gets 13 constitution. We did not give it a bonus for intelligence, so it's got 10 intelligence. It takes a penalty for wisdom, so it only have 8 wisdom, and a +2 to charisma for 12. And that gives us a full abilities block. So I can't touch the strength and I can't touch the constitution. Having the charisma be a penalty is an option. I will give you that one. But I could just go with the +2 intelligence and make everything really simple, and that way I don't have to penalize anything. So quick and easy. Quick and easy is the way to go. Next is drone, and now we're getting into the ones that we haven't done yet. Now, for drone, did we do a drone somewhere else? Hold on. I think that might have been an artifact creature. Nope. Sapient non-humanoids is where we have drone. And they just got a +2 dexterity. And so we don't even have to think about this one. We can just put a +2 dexterity there. Next is Druid. And I don't think I have Druid anywhere else. I don't think, anyway. Just taking a quick look. No, I don't see it. Okay. Well, that's fine. Okay, good enough. Just stay there. Druids. Druids are nature casters. As such, they tend to not value intelligence much as they do wisdom, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give them a +2 dexterity. Why? Because they have to move through the underbrush, through the trees, through everything. They got to be dexterous. They're going to get a +2 wisdom because they need that. However, that means they need a penalty, and this one will be easy. It's going to be a -2 to intelligence. Because druids, they're not big on the book learning. Okay, egg, we already did. No bonuses, it's an egg. I could even maybe give it penalties, to be honest, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that's going to bring us to the Elder. And I need to start moving things up here. Okay, the Elder. Elders are just normal people. They're just old. And they're also kind of getting frail and hard to move. So here's how we're going to do this. Generally speaking, it is a bit of a faux pas to give 2 bonuses to one side of your stat block, either your hard stats or your soft stats. For an Elder, though, they're past the hard stat point. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a +2 to intelligence and a +2 to wisdom, because you earned that wisdom, but a -2 to dexterity, because you're old. I'm sorry. Alright, next up is employee. This one should be really simple. You are just an employee. You're there to do a job. You could be an employee in a skilled trade. You could also be an employee in an unskilled trade. As such, no bonuses. You're just the employee here. Okay. JP says, LOL, I summon a Jem'Hadar Elder. Okay, that's... We're not doing Star Trek on this one. But I will concede the point. I will concede the point on that one. Okay, an Elder is Elder Jem'Hadar is definitely not missing dexterity. However, to be fair, they are genetically engineered. So that's a cheat code. Okay, Flag Bearer. Flag bearers are literally exactly what their name says. If you're going into battle, they're the ones who are holding up the flag. As such, I think that I'm going to go ahead and number one, they're going to get a bonus to their charisma because Duh. Their entire job is literally morale. I'm going to do this. Number 1, +2 dexterity. Why? Because you went to battle with a flag. So, good luck. Serpentine. Number 2, +2 charisma. Because you are there to literally bolster the morale of everybody. However, -2 wisdom. Again, going back to my dexterity comment, you went into the war with a flag. I give you full marks for bravery. And that's about where it ends. I'm not saying it's not an important job, I'm just saying that it may not have been the best decision. I'm reminded a little bit of 40K, where because we have lost so much technology in 40K, everything has to be done by hand. Everything. You need to repair something, you do it by hand. You need to build something, you do it by hand. You need to load a giant cannon, though. Guess what? You have to get 10 people together to carry the shells because there's no auto-loaders. Or, one of my personal favorites, is refueling warp engines. This is just a minor little tangent, but in 40K, in order to refuel the warp engines, they literally have to wrap somebody up in all kinds of anti-radiation gear. Because the fuel is radioactive, the warp engine is radioactive, everything is radioactive. So they wrap them in layers of lead, and more lead, and rubbers, and latexes, and everything else, and then leathers, and other stuff on top of that. Then they pump them full of all kinds of drugs, just to make sure that they don't go into organ failure before they reach the engine. It is a one-way trip. Then they are given the fuel core, which is radioactive. They are forced to march, dragging the fuel core to the engine, which again is also radioactive, pull out the old core and toss it aside and insert the new core before their flesh literally sloughs off of their bones. Okay? It's one of those jobs where you're not coming out of this one, and either you were too dumb to volunteer for it, or somebody tricked you. And I'm not trying to call flag bearers dumb, I'm just saying that we've had this job going way back in time, and I gotta wonder, how exactly did you convince somebody to go into battle with the flag? Because that right there is just straight up martyrdom. It's, oh no! The flag bearer was shot with an arrow. Somebody else pick up the flag. Come on. Don't make me start picking. Somebody volunteer to pick up the flag. I have to give them the -2 wisdom on that one. I'm sorry, I just have to do it. Okay, next up is going to be Gamer, and this one I have to look up because I don't know if this is going to be from the unsets or not. Okay, Gamer, it's a creature class used for cards that depict people playing games. Let's see. Including Magic the Gathering, all current gamers are humans except for one, which is a zombie. It's on a total of 8 cards. However, it was introduced in Unhinged and has appeared in all these subsequent unsets: Unstable, Unsanctioned, and Unfinity. So, I mean, it's in the unsets. That makes it not legal in this set. So I can't. It's not happening. Gamer is not applicable. And let's see, Knight says, the Ensign Flag Bearer is one of the most prestigious positions. I get that it's prestigious. I'm just not saying it's the smartest one. It can be both prestigious and unwise at the same time. I mean, just look at politics. Okay, next up is going to be the guest. Now, is guest also a an uncard, or what is this? Go away. Let's see. Guest is an eternal creature subtype introduced in Unfinity. It is on 24 cards. However, is it on anything else? It's on 24 cards. It just says as of Unfinity. I don't know. Hold on. We'll come back here. And type in guest. Okay, guest has given me 6. So what do we got here? What is this symbol? Lord of the Rings? Well, that's part of the franchised cards. Not doing it. Jumpstart 25, but that's a vampire, so that doesn't count. Let's see. Halfling citizen, vampire, human, peasant, contraband. None of these depict an actual guest. I may need to go to the advanced search. Okay, creature subtypes. Guest. Go ahead and add that and do a search. Okay, here we go. Zombie Guest. And it is part of the Unfinity set. And there are 22 of these. Unfinity. I'm just going to look for any symbols that look like they might be different. I can't really see them all that well, but I'm trying here. Okay, no, they all look the same. These are all from the Unfinity sets. So they're not relevant to us. And like, I'm sorry if you enjoy the Unfinity or the unsets in general, but they're just impossible to balance. I can't use them. So that's not happening. All right, next, hero. This one we could use. It is a creature class that depicts characters who, in the face of danger and adversity, or from a position of weakness, display courage and the will for self-sacrifice for the greater good. Yeah, that's about right. There's only 6 cards with hero on it. Let's see. So the first to bear the subtype was the Benalish hero in the limited edition Alpha. The Keldorn Warrior, Beastwalkers, Crusaders. Okay. So these do seem like legitimate creature types that I can use. I'm not saying the other ones aren't legitimate. I'm just saying that I can use. Creatures with hero in their name but not bearing the type. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of those. But okay. Let's think about this. What are we gonna give them? So heroes are they're heroes. What am I supposed to say about that? What are we gonna give them? Obviously they need a bonus to charisma. Okay? And quite frankly, that could be it. Like, you don't have to be the most dexterous person to be a hero. You don't need to be the most intelligent person to be a hero. You don't need to be the wisest person to be a hero, but you do need to have some level of charisma. Otherwise, your heroic sacrifice is just a sacrifice. So, yeah, I think that we're just going to give them a +2 charisma. And that's going to be it. We're talking about hero in, like, the social sense, not the hero in, like, the anime protagonist sense. So it'll be fine. Alright, next up is going to be Inquisitor. I feel like I don't even need to look this one up, but I will. They depict a person inquiring, especially one seen to be excessively harsh or searching, and is currently only used as a Warhammer 40k crossover type. It's a really good thing that I looked it up, because that means that it is not usable. Okay, no Inquisitors. Not until they actually print one that goes with the standard editions. What about knights? We should have a ton of knights. There are 496 knight cards. So, yeah. They're going to, they're a thing. And PC Unicorn's in the chat. PC Unicorn says, no, he's got to be strong, he's got to be fast, he's got to be fresh from the fight. I mean, I don't have to give him a bonus, and he can still do all of those. I mean, let's see. He's strong, maybe. I don't know. That's set by the card's power. So, if he's strong, that's on him. Is he fast? Well, they do still have a ×4 run speed. And fresh from the fight. I guess that depends on your definition. But we'll make it work. And Knight says, no one expects Inquisitors. No, they don't, especially not from the Imperium. Actually, no, I think they kind of do expect Inquisitors from the Imperium. That's part of the problem. It's like, oh no, that's a starship with the Inquisitorial seal. We're so screwed. Okay, moving on though. Knights. I don't need to go through all of this. I really don't. We just need to determine what do knights get. Knights are supposed to be strong and tough. Again, that is determined by the card. So, what else can we give them? I can give them more dexterity because they are fighters, and dexterity is always beneficial to a fighter. They do need intelligence to know what they're doing. They need wisdom to act inside of a battle. They need charisma because their knight is not just something you get for nothing. You are bestowed a title as a knight. I can't give them bonuses in everything, though. If I can't give them penalties in anything, then I can only give them a bonus in one thing. I'm going to go ahead and give it to them. I got to think about this one. Here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to give them a +2 in dexterity. I'm also going to give them a +2 in charisma. Why? Because like I just said, it's a title. I'm going to give them a -2 in wisdom. Why? Because knights are soldiers. And they do what they're told. Now, part of that is because of obligation, and they have to do what they're told. But when you're talking about knights, more so than modern soldiers are actually encouraged, kinda, sorta, to question orders. If an order is unlawful, you are obligated to not follow it. Knights, on the other hand, were encouraged to not think about it. If your lord tells you to go put down a peasant village, you're going to go put down a peasant village, and they don't care how you feel about it. They don't care if you know some of the people there. You were given orders, now carry them out. So the knight, specifically, is getting penalties on their wisdom. However, when we get down to soldier, that's not gonna fly. Next up, though, is mercenary. Same thing, essentially, as a knight. The only difference is that they do it for money. Or I guess same thing as a soldier, really. Do we have soldiers? Actually, we do. We did do soldiers. They're down here. And I gave the soldier a +2 dexterity, +2 intelligence, and -2 charisma. The reason for that is you must be smart, you must be nimble, but nobody really likes seeing you. It's unfortunate, but I mean, it's true. Mercenaries, kind of the same thing. So I think I'm just going to copy. I mean, generally speaking, nobody wants to see a soldier because there's only like 2 times that you see a soldier. One is if they happen to be like just off base or something, and you see them, and then it's like, okay, hey, hi soldier, thank you for your service. The other way you see a soldier, though, is if they're occupying your country, in which case nobody's happy to see you. Not usually, anyway. I mean, it has happened where there's countries that are kind of like, thank you for freeing us from the despot. But those opportunities are rare. Mercenaries, same thing. They're here for the gold. They're here for the credits, they're here for the money. They don't care about you, they just care about getting paid. So, penalty to charisma. Okay, minions. No, not the yellow ones. Okay, I'm going to put that up right now. Not the yellow ones. It's a creature class used for cards to depict those who work for the will of overtly evil forces or organizations. Minions are black-hearted individuals who knowingly bring harm upon others through subterfuge or open malice. It's on 42 cards, so, I mean, there's a lot there. But what do they do? Minions are basically just employees. That's all they are. The only difference is that they don't serve for a paycheck, they serve for the honor and glory of serving their dark master. They're just employees. And they don't get they don't get a W-2. They don't even get dental. So, no bonuses. Okay. That one's easy. What about a monger? So, monger is a creature unique to the Mercadian masks. The 5 creatures of the cycle are depicted as being strange-looking dealers in commodities. Each one of these uncommon 3/3 creatures has a cost of 3, and 1 colored mana, and has an activated ability to cost 2. Okay, that's oddly specific. But the point is that it says there's only 5 cards, and they're here. And it says right here, a monger is a creature type that isn't supported anymore. It was used to unify a group of creatures, but the type has not been added to the creatures thereafter. Fair enough. If all they are is essentially merchants, all they have to do is sell you stuff. They don't have to be particularly dexterous. They don't have to be particularly intelligent. I mean, they do. But their most important attribute is going to be their charisma. So, we'll do that. Alright, next up is a monk. Now, monk can mean one of 2 things. So let's take a look. So here it says, monk is a creature class. The monk class is a relatively late addition to the game. Originally, creatures with the word monk in their names bore the cleric type. But monk then became its own creature type with the release of the Kamigawa block. And monks printed before that now have both types. Dervishes also changed into the subtype of monk. I mean, okay. And let's see, Blizzard Star says, and wisdom. I believe that was in reference to the monger, as in mongers need to be wise. I agree. The problem then comes in that if I give them both charisma and wisdom, I have to give them a penalty somewhere. And where do I take away from them? Do I take away from their dexterity? Oh, I kind of can't. I would have to take away from their intelligence because I've already given them a bonus to 2 soft stats. And you can't really have a dumb monger. So I can only give them a +2 bonus. Anyway, though, and JP says Monk was a good show. I will have to, I'll have to go with that one. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot of good things about that show. I can only speculate. Anyway, though, monks. These are definitely talking about the martial artist monks. And so, do they get dexterity? Sure, they get dexterity. They're going to get lots of dexterity. So, +2 dexterity. What else are we going to give them? Well, monks do tend to be very insightful and very wise. They tend to be very introspective. So, we'll give them a bonus to wisdom. How about a penalty then? What do we want to penalize the monk with? Are you going to penalize them for their charisma? Well, that's going to be kind of hard because most monks tend to actually be very charismatic. People literally seek them out for their wisdom. Now, yes, there are stories about monks who are definitely not charismatic. I think about the story of Pai Mei from the Kill Bill movie. That he was a monk. He was not charismatic. Or at least he wasn't very personable. I guess once you got to know him, he was fine. So we could penalize charisma, and we could just say it's because they're usually cloistered, or we could penalize their intelligence. Now, were monks dumb? No, they were not dumb. But again, this is not necessarily reflecting everything. They weren't dumb, but they were not exactly huge on the book learning either. They tended to keep to their temples, they kept up with their training, and they kept to their meditations and their wisdom. So I think that intelligence is maybe the best way to go. So that'll be a -2 intelligence. Not that they can't be intelligent, just that they don't tend to be. Alright, next up is a mystic. So, mystics are a semi-retired creature class. Mystics, like clerics, are adept at channeling mana through their faith, but instead of devoting themselves to a religion, they learn magic through the careful meditations. Mystics often have a special connection with the spirits of the deceased, granting them powers such as flight. Okay, well, I mean, if we're comparing them directly to to clerics already, I'm all on board for that. Let's go ahead and just copy cleric. Done. And the Mystic does have kind of the same problem. We gave a bonus to their soft stats, but we didn't do anything with their hard stats. It'll be okay, I think. I mean, these are not going to be actual player characters. These are just for quick roll-ups. Okay, ninjas. Do I even need to? Ninjas are basically just monks, except they use stealth as well. I mean, it says right here, masters of both stealth and armed combat who may find employment as spies, warriors, mercenaries, and assassins. Like I said, they're basically just monks, and as a matter of fact, when you look at weapons that ninjas used and weapons that monks used, you find an awful lot of crossover there. Most monks trained with weapons that were fashioned after agricultural equipment, and most ninjas tended to use agriculture equipment because, well, that was what they had available. So I kind of feel like we can do the same thing with them. Maybe. We can also think about this a little bit. Ninjas, they're going to get a plus to dexterity, okay? We're going to do that right off the bat. So that is a +2 dexterity because they have to have it. Do I leave it there, though? Intelligence. They worked as spies and assassins. They needed to be intelligent. Wisdom. I guess you could make the argument that breaking into the daimyo's fort was not necessarily the most wise thing to do. But I mean, if you're going to stab yourself a daimyo, that's kind of where you got to go. Charisma. Charisma is super complicated. Are ninjas charismatic? It depends on what they're doing. A ninja spy needs to be very charismatic. A ninja who is hiding needs to be very charismatic. A ninja who is sneaking through your bedroom at night so they can stab you is not necessarily being extra charismatic. So, do I penalize it? Do I just ignore it? I could leave it as just a +2 dexterity and the rest of their stats can stay as is. No bonuses, but no penalties either. They're just fine. I think that's the way to go, honestly. We'll give them a bonus to their dexterity, and we're not going to penalize anything else. Okay. Next up is the noble. So it just says right here, members of the aristocracy, okay? They're the upper echelons, okay? They're the billionaires and the billionaires. What am I going to give them? They're not getting a bonus to their dexterity, okay? Most nobles couldn't run for their lives even if they were being chased. Which, you know, happened a lot. So they're not getting a bonus to their dexterity. Intelligence. Hard. Were nobles smart? Yes, actually they were. By default, if you were a noble, you were educated. Sometimes because you were the only ones who could afford education. And so they're going to get a bonus for their intelligence. Wisdom. They were raised with certain advice given to them, but whether that was good advice, bad advice, I can't really say that they're going to get a I can't say if they're going to get a bonus to their wisdom. Just I can't see that happening. And PC Acorn says a super charismatic ninja sneaks into the house, politely wakes up the victim, and gets them to agree to the stabbing. You know, technically, if you rolled high enough, you could do that. I mean, it would be virtually impossible. It wouldn't even be like a natural 20. It would be more like rolling a natural 100. It's like, okay, normally you would roll a d20 plus your charisma modifier. I need you to roll a d100 plus your charisma modifier. Oh, you actually rolled a 100. Okay, never mind. Yeah. The target has listened to your proposal, understands that the people are unhappy, and they blame the daimyo for the state of the feudal kingdom. And they've agreed to let themselves be killed because it will bring about a more prosperous era. Yes, that would require a natural 100. Okay, anyway, getting back to this. Nobles, right. We were doing nobles. Intelligence, yes. Wisdom, probably not. Charisma. That's a hard one. Because were nobles charismatic? Some of them were. Some of them weren't. As a matter of fact, a lot of people hated the aristocracy, and a lot of people still do hate the aristocracy. As a matter of fact, I would go ahead and say the majority of the people hate the aristocracy. And there's reasons for that. Some of them are good, most of them are bad, but the point remains that most people hate the aristocracy. So let's face it, they're not dexterous, they're not wise, they're not charismatic necessarily. The only thing they have left to them is intelligence. They are educated. So +2 to intelligence. Okay. There we go. We got the noble done. Next up, the nomad. Members from uncivilized tribes who wander open spaces in tightly knit groups. How many of these do we have? There's only 29 of them. It first appeared in the Arabian Nights with the desert nomads. It says it says they wandered the plains and mountains from place to place to find fresh pasture for their animals and have no permanent homes. Like barbarians, it is more a description of heritage than a class. Most nomads are white or red. The last nomads were printed in the Odyssey block, with the potential return teased in the Fomori Nomad. Okay. Similar to barbarians then. So we can actually look at the barbarian. For the barbarian, we gave them additional dexterity, plus will, and -2 charisma. I see no reason not to do the same thing with them. Are they like combat levels? I'm gonna adjust this. Are they combat levels of dexterity? No, not really. However, if you're constantly traversing potentially rough terrain, then maybe. Wisdom. Wisdom. There we go. Wisdom? Yes. They literally have to survive off of their wisdom alone because they don't really or necessarily have the intelligence. Charisma? There's no reason to believe that they're not charismatic, though. So what I think we'll do, actually, is... I'll copy this. Actually, no, here we go. The monk has the stats that I want. Dexterity plus wisdom, but minus intelligence because they have no formal education of any kind. Necessarily. They don't have schools. I mean, sure, they get taught things, but... Dexterity, wisdom, and minus intelligence. I think that's good. I think it's good. Peasants. Do I even need to look it up? No bonuses. You're a peasant. You don't matter. You're here to work the land and to be cannon fodder. Sorry, that's what you are. Okay, performers. Entertainers who put on shows for the enjoyment and fun of others. I mean, I think we know what a performer is at this point. It's not that hard. For performers, obviously, they're going to need dexterity. They're going to need charisma. So what do we penalize? I think intelligence. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say +2 dexterity, +2 charisma, and a -2 to intelligence. Why? Well, because you don't have to be smart to be an artist. I'm not going to say it doesn't help. I'm just going to say if you go to a modern art museum, obviously you do not have to be smart to be an artist. And I'm going to leave that at that. Okay, next, pilots. Peoples who fly skyships, air balloons, or other aerial vehicles. It's a pilot. So what are we going to give them? That one's kind of hard. To be a pilot, you need a lot of things. You need to be dexterous, because you've got to be able to operate in 3 dimensions. You got to be smart. You got to have good instincts. But do you have to be charismatic? I would dare say no. You don't have to be charismatic. So what if we did this? +2 dexterity, because, like I said, operating in 3 dimensions here. +2 intelligence, because you're operating with machines. You gotta know how they work. And a -2 to charisma, because you don't have to operate with people, you work with machines. Alright, pirate. Motley fighters and scoundrels who sail the seas and the skies to loot and plunder from the unexpected. They're pirates. Who doesn't love pirates? I mean, I guess anybody who's been pirated. They don't like pirates. Anyway though, pirates, what are we going to do with them? They're going to go ahead and they're going to get a bonus to their dexterity. Because they need it. They're operating on the high seas or the high skies. And either way, you don't want to fall off. Now, what about the rest? Intelligence. Do you need intelligence to be a pirate? You can make the argument for yes. You can also make the argument for no. The captain has to be intelligent. The crew doesn't necessarily have to be intelligent. And let's face it, you're not going to be the captain. So, do you have to be intelligent to be a pirate? No, not really. Do you have to be wise? I would dare say that becoming a pirate in the first place is not the wisest thing to do. Generally, people become pirates out of desperation, not because they had choices. So, definitely not giving a bonus on wisdom. Charisma. Are pirates charismatic? Do I really need to answer that? Okay, so, they're not intelligent, they're not wise, they're not charismatic. We don't need to give them a bonus in anything else. Dexterity will be fine. They're just really good at the whole dexterity thing. Now, I could potentially give them more dexterity if I penalize something else. Technically speaking, if I can give them a +2 for every penalty I give them, I could penalize their intelligence, wisdom, and charisma and give them a +8 dexterity. I'm not doing that, but I could. But okay, moving on. Praetors. It says a Praetor is a leader of a dark force. Let's take a look. Oh, hey, I know that guy. I've seen him before. Let's see. It is used for cards that depict leaders of dark forces. They're on New Phyrexia. It introduced a subtype with a cycle of mythic rare legendary creatures, one per color, representing the Phyrexians' rulers, and the different philosophies among the Phyrexian armies regarding what exactly New Phyrexia should look like. They give a positive effect to the player controlling them and an inverse effect on their opponents, which is great. There's 18 of these cards and they came in March of the Machines, so we need them. However, what can we do? These guys are basically just leaders. And so we should treat them as such. If they are leaders, we have to assume they're going to be kind of smart, right? We should assume they're charismatic in some way. Wise? Probably. Dexterous? Maybe? Again, if I can't give them bonuses to everything, and I can't, then I can only give them a bonus to one thing, and we'd have to make the best of it. So, what we'll do, I think, is I'm not going to give them a bonus for the dexterity because they're a leader and they don't have to fight. They have people to do that for them. So that leaves our soft stats, and we have to pick one of them, really. What are we going to do? A good leader is smart, a good leader is wise, and a good leader must be charismatic. So the more I think about this, the more it's harder to give them a bonus at all. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give them a bonus to... Okay, I'm going to look at this differently. I could give them bonuses in anything. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to give them +2 wisdom. Now, why am I doing that? The reason I'm doing +2 wisdom is not because they necessarily have to be wise. I mean, they should be. They should also be intelligent. They should also be charismatic. However, a +2 wisdom will give them a +1 bonus on their will save. So if you try to break their morale, they will be more resistant to it. The leader should be the last one to break. And so, if we're talking about the leader of your dark forces, Praetor's going to get a +2 wisdom. It's a little bit of a meta way to get there, but at the same time, I think it's the best way to get there. Okay, next, Processor. Eldritch spellcasters that pull things from the void back into the world. Let's see. This is also exclusive to the Eldrazi and is associated with Ulmog's Brood. It was introduced alongside Scion for the Battle of Zendikar. So, like, first off, I don't think you're getting any of these. Were any of these common? I don't even know. But, let's think about this. All processors have an ability that requires you to put your opponent's exiled cards into their graveyard for some effect. Of the 11 creatures, 8 use 1 exiled card at a time and 3 use 2. The mechanic is largely in blue-black with 1 green. Let's see. During the design process, the mechanic was known as digest or process. That's fine. Either way, these seem to be creatures that just kind of operate on pre-programmed instinct. These don't look very smart. Doesn't even look very nimble. Or charismatic, obviously. But hey, it's Eldrazi, so charisma was out the window a long time ago. So let's think about this. These are exclusive to the Eldrazi, which means that they're just kind of better than you. So what if we did this? It strikes me as like an Eldrazi animal. What if I treated them as such? But better. So instead of setting their intelligence to -2, we just won't penalize their intelligence. What if we were to give them the +2 dexterity and +2 wisdom that we would normally give an animal, leave their intelligence alone though, and penalize their charisma because, let's face it, nobody's happy when they show up. I think that's the way to do it. +2 dexterity and +2 wisdom, because they run on instinct and their instincts are better than yours, but a -2 to charisma. Because, like I said, nobody wants them. Okay, next up is a ranger. I don't even need to look it up. Okay, I don't even need to look it up. I know what a ranger is. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons forever. Rangers are going to get a +2 dexterity and a +2 wisdom and also a -2 charisma. Why? Because they prefer animals to you. And who knows, they might even be right about that. But either way, that's what they're getting. Rangers, super easy. What about rebels, though? They're not as easy. Individuals who fight against an established authority. Okay, so what are we going to give them? Well, if you're rebelling, you better be able to dodge, so we can give them a dexterity bonus. However, what about the rest? Intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Are rebels intelligent? I would go so far as to say no. Most rebels tend to just be followers. They do what they're told, they appear where they're told to be, they rail against whatever they're told to rail against. They're not exactly known for thinking for themselves. Despite the whole, we're rebelling against the cause, we're individualists. Yeah, they all believe the exact same thing. So, no, not doing that. Wisdom. A wise person would not rebel against the authority directly. They would rebel against the authority in subversive ways. So they're not getting that. Are rebels charismatic? Given that we have rebellion around the world in about, I don't know, a dozen different theaters and in 6 different ways, no, they're not charismatic. They're good at attracting other broken people like themselves. However, they usually do so at the expense of the greater population. So with no bonuses to intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, but not necessarily enough to penalize them for it either, they'll get a bonus to their dexterity. Like I said, if you're going to be a rebel, you better get good at dodging, because you're going to be doing it a lot. Next up is a rigger. Creatures that specialize in lifting and moving extremely large or heavy objects. That is not what I expected. The Steam Flogger boss from Future Sight was presented as a rigger lord, but at the time, the only creature with the subtype was the Steam Flogger boss itself. Until the Grand Creature update, he was joined by the Mariok rigger. They did finally return it unstable, and they can assemble contraptions, but we're not using the uncard, so yeah, that's not a thing. Which means that it's not really on much. Like, what are you from? What is this Moriok rigger from? It's from 5th Dawn. Huh, I should have known that, actually. And even then, it was known as a human rogue, but now I guess it's been changed. So yeah, there's only like 2 cards, but because of that, we still have to do it. Here's the thing. Creatures that specialize in lifting and moving extremely large or heavy objects. Well, what do you need to do that? You need strength. We can't touch strength because it's set by the card. just like we can't touch their constitution. So are they dexterous? No, they're essentially the power loader from Aliens. It's just they don't need a pilot. And trust me, it was not dexterous either. Are they intelligent? Well, they don't have to be. Are they wise? Again, they don't have to be. Are they charismatic? No, probably not. Which means that, quite frankly, there's nothing I can give them. Their thing is their strength. And I can't do anything for that. So no bonuses. Okay, next one is the rogue. I don't even need to look up the rogue. I know what a rogue is because I'm a rogue player. Rogues are very much similar to assassins. And as such, I can probably just borrow from the assassin. Bonus to dexterity, bonus to intelligence, penalty to charisma. People tend to not like you when you stab them. Not to mention that rogues are also not just assassins, they're also spies, they're also petty thieves. I mean, nobody likes a rogue. Unless it's a dashing rogue. People like a dashing rogue. Okay, samurai. Samurai are very much just knights from a different culture. And they operated in the same way that knights did. They held titles, they followed orders. They were supposed to be more enlightened, but whether they were or were not more enlightened is really up for debate. So we'll give them the same thing we gave the knights. Bonus to dexterity, these are trained warriors. Bonus to charisma, they do hold title. And a -2 to wisdom because your life is absolutely not your own. Somebody else is making your decisions for you. Alright, next up is going to be a scion. So it says here, scions are a descendant of a force or being that aim to help their originator. This creature type is exclusive to the Eldrazi tokens. It was introduced alongside the processor in the Battle for Zendikar. Similar to spawns, scions are colorless and can be sacrificed to add mana. They are primarily generated by black and green mana cards. Unlike spawns, scions are 1/1s instead of 0/1s and have blue mana generators rather than red. See. So that's fine. Did we ever do scion and anything else? I'll take a look. Let's see. Scion, looking for the S's. Got the Eldrazi there. We have spawns. Nothing in there. Nothing under the artifact creatures. No, I don't think we ever did the scion, so there's nothing for me to copy and paste. Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It does compare the scions, though, directly to the spawns, and there are no actual scions. They are only tokens. There are 24 scion creation cards, but no actual scions. These don't get a bonus. No bonuses. Okay, moving on then. And come back here. Scientist. Okay, so we'll just think about this one for a moment. Are scientists dexterous? No. They're generally not. They're nerds. Okay? They're not even nerds. They're geeks. Geeks are not known for being dexterous. They're known for getting hung by a coat rack by their underwear. Okay, are they intelligent? Undoubtedly so. Scientists are known for their intelligence. Are they wise? Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll. Who else can I think of off the top of my head? I think we can skip wisdom. Are they charismatic? Frankenstein, Dr. You see where I'm going here. They're not getting a bonus to their wisdom or their charisma. So, instead, they are going to just straight up get a +2 bonus to their intelligence. Now, why am I not penalizing the others to give them like a bigger bonus? Because I don't think I need to. Not all scientists are mad scientists. It's just you have that section inside of scientists, and there's not like a Venn diagram. It's just wholly inside of scientists. Okay, next up, scouts. Probably not the Team Fortress 2 scout, but hey, maybe he fits in here too. What is a scout going to be? Well, without even looking at it, I know that they have to be dexterous. So we got that. Now, what about the rest, though? Are scouts intelligent? Usually, they have some, at least, training. Are they wise? Well, I can give you this one. An unwise scout is usually a dead scout. So, probably? Are they charismatic? They're not uncharismatic unless we want to treat them like rangers. If we treat them like rangers, just, with more of an emphasis on intelligence than accuracy, then yeah, then they prefer being outside and operating alone than they do with other people. Which is fair. It's hard to be a scout when you're operating with an entire team. So we could use the same stats for the ranger, and that will give them a bit more wisdom. And I'm good with that. I want to do that. That's good. Okay, after the scout is the serf. Serfs and peasants are the same thing, I think. Actually, what is the difference between a serf and a peasant? I mean, we have two different words, so what's the difference? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask. Hold on, I'm going to consult the ChatGPT on this one. I'm going to consult this because I want to know what the difference is. Okay, I have two different creature classes I'm making stats for. One of them is a peasant, and one of them is a serf. This spawned the question, what exactly is the difference between a peasant and a serf? Okay, now I gotta give it a minute to generate the answer. I bet I know what the answer is. I bet a serf, which is probably for the root word of servant, I bet a serf is probably owned or indebted in some way. But here we go. Let's see what it is. ChatGPT says, yes, the classic peasant versus serf question. Deceptively simple, but actually a huge deal in social and economic history. The short version is, all serfs are peasants, but not all peasants are serfs. The difference is in legal status and freedom. Peasant, as a broad term, is a general term for the rural agricultural laborer. It can include free farmers who own their own land, tenant farmers who rent land from a lord, and serfs who are bound to the land and the lord. Basically, peasant is an umbrella category. It just means not nobility or clergy and works the land. Serfs, however, are a subclass of peasant with restrictions. A serf is a peasant bound to the land under the feudal system. The key characteristics of serf are, they cannot leave the land without permission. They cannot change jobs or marry without the lord's approval. They pay rent and taxes in the form of labor, goods, and sometimes coin. However, they are not a slave, as they could not be sold independently of the land. But they are not free either. They weren't legally allowed to leave or choose a different life. So, yeah, there we go. Peasants versus serfs. Um, we learned a thing today. I love learning things. It doesn't change anything for us, because they're still peasants, which means no bonuses. But it's good to know anyway. Alright, next up is going to be the Shaman. And Shamans... It says here that it is a creature class and the primary red spellcaster. When the word shaman show up in flavor text in the early days, for example in Anarchy, the creature type itself only dates back to Mirrodin, for example the Spike-Shot Goblin. I have that card. That set also featured a new race class model. The creative needed to flesh out the classes and found that wizards showed up in too high a volume. The shaman creature type was then created to help subcategorize types of magic users in the games. PC Unicorn says that surf sounds just like slavery with extra steps. Because it kinda is. It's like slavery, but with a fresher paint of coat, or a fresher coat of paint on it. Yes, a fresher paint of coat. You can write that one down. Put that on a shirt and sell it in Japan. People will love it. Okay, so shamans. They're magic casters, which means that I can treat them pretty much just like wizards. However, is that really what I want to do? It says that they're similar to wizards in that their magic comes from rituals, lore, and years of practice, but their craft has an emotional and spiritual component, reminiscent of druids. Wizards are defined as more formally trained. So if our shamans are going to be more like druids, we can borrow from the druid. I mean, I guess it's more like a tree druid versus a fire druid. And yes, you can have druids who specialize in fire. If you want, we can even go over that. But there we go. I think we can do that. Okay. So that takes care of the shaman. I'm going to rewrite the soldier, just because I have it in shorthand here. +2 dexterity, +2 intelligence, and -2 in charisma. Okay, next up is gonna be Spawn. No, not the comic book character. Do I have Spawn anywhere else? Because it sounds like something I could have done. I do. It's right down here. But is it? Ooh, hold on a second. Because this one has that little marker right there. This could be different. JP says, freshly painted coat. Quoting Cat Shadow. Again, like I said, sell it in Japan. It'll be a huge hit. Okay, so Spawn. Looking at this. Spawn is a blue and colorless creature type used for cards and tokens that depict creatures that is regarded as the offspring of some concept or place. I think this is literally the same thing that we looked at last time. There is exactly one card, and then 38 Spawn creation cards. The first one was the Elder Spawn in Legends, and this is probably the one card that we need to look at. So here we go. The Elder Spawn, this is, I guess, the only card that is an actual creature. And even then, it literally says Summon Spawn. This goes way back. It's not even defined as a creature, just say Summon. It's a 6/6. It costs 7 to play, because back then cards were a lot more expensive. Okay, so if this is all we have to do, it says, begin your upkeep unless you sacrifice an island, sacrifice this creature, and it deals 6 damage to you. That doesn't really help us define what it is, though. it doesn't really help. Yeah. PC Unicorn says it depends on the spawn, or it depends. Is the spawn red and blue? Then is it? No, it's not that one, obviously. Knight says there's only one creature card. The rest are just tokens. Yes, and for the tokens, I don't have to do anything for because the tokens don't get bonuses. But this one absolutely does, and even though it is only a single creature, I still got to figure out what am I going to give it. And the weird thing is that since it says nothing about it, then there's nothing I can really tell. All it says is that the Elder spawn in Legends, but the subtype was then changed to Elemental in the Grand Oh, wait. What? Really? Elder spawn. Right. So this is the Elder spawn. It's considered a spawn. However, the subtype was changed to Elemental in the Grand Creature type update. So technically, according to the Grand Creature update, Spawn doesn't exist anymore. Yes, this does say that Spawn is a thing. I'm gonna make a note here. This is gonna be NA use Elemental, which I also think doesn't actually get any bonuses, but that'll take care of that. Alright, that one was complicated, but also surprisingly easy to resolve. Next up is Spell Shaper. So Spell Shaper is a creature class. They are among the most narrowly focused spellcasters. They are salesmen of magical spells and devote themselves to perfecting a single spell or selection of spells, relying on a mastery of their focus to make up for their lack of versatility. In all other respects, they are similar to wizards, clerics, and druids. That is difficult. However, I have a solution for this one. I have a solution. So for the others, we had to determine what are we going to give them, because like a wizard's going to get intelligence, sorcerers get charisma, druids get wisdom. But here's what we'll do. I'm going to make this one variable. +2 dexterity, +2 intelligence, or, and that is a very explicit capital or, +2 charisma. You can have any one of those, and that should make your Spell Shaper fit whatever it is that you need it to be doing. I imagine the, or wait, hold on a second. I did that wrong. I'm so used to with putting in dexterity. +2 intelligence, +2 wisdom, or +2 charisma. Okay, there we go. Spell Shaper's done. Next up, Survivor. So Survivor is only on 17 cards. It is rarely used, depicting people remaining alive after an event in which others have died. It first appeared on tokens in the Alliances faction. And there are 2 Survivor creation cards, but it is also on 17 other cards. Although it says from its introduction until Duskworn House of Horror, until Duskworn House of Horror, the type only appeared on tokens. The creature type finally appeared on non-token cards in Duskworn House of Horror, where it was used for creatures with the survival mechanic. Which, did we do survival? It's an ability word that was introduced where it is connected to the plane's various survivors. What does it do? Survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, then something else. So, actually, I want to see that. Did I have anything in survival? It's got to be down here somewhere. Looking. Too many words. My eyes are overused at this point. So just survive. No, it's not actually in there. Okay. Not actually in there. PC Unicorn says, random thought, in an RP sense. Could you summon something to speak to an NPC? Like something that they might identify with more or be more intimidated by? That is a really, really good question. And I will get to that in a moment. However, the immediate answer to your question is no. But again, like I said, I will get to that in a moment because it is a more complicated question than you think. So here's an example of the veteran survivor. Survival at the beginning of the second main phase. If he's tapped, exile up to one target card from the graveyard. As long as there's 3 or more cards exiled with veteran survivor, it gets a +3/+3 and has hexproof. Cool. But not important to what we're doing here. Also, I think that means that I need to go ahead and add another, to add more things to the spells. Because we never did that one. Survivors. They're... What am I going to give them? They're essentially just normal people who happen to survive. Like, you could be a heroic survivor, you could also be a peasant survivor. I think that what they're going to get is I'm going to give them bonuses to will. So that's going to be a +2 wisdom, which will give them a stronger will to survive. Tentacles. Now it's got that same little cross mark on it, which means that this might be defunct. So it says here, the tentacle is a token-only creature introduced in Theros Beyond Death. It is used for cards that affect flexible limbs and appendages from a kraken. Tentacles are used for grasping or moving about. Tentacle is not really a race or class, it just fulfills the same function. Okay, so it's only a token. That makes this easy for us. There's no bonuses on this one. Warlocks. Warlocks are casters, very similar to wizards and others. However, the thing about warlocks is that they get their power given to them usually. It says here, a warlock is a spellcaster who derives their power from evil forces. More traditionally, though, a warlock is anyone who channels their power from a patron. I'm going to... Actually, I don't even need to do this because I know this. Pathfinder doesn't have warlocks, but it does have witches. And witches are charisma-based casters. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Warlocks are going to get a +2 charisma, but nothing else. That'll be fine. Warriors are also just like your standard foot soldiers. They don't need the soft stats so much as they just need to have dexterity, and they got it. The same thing is going to apply to wizards. Are wizards dexterous? No. Are they intelligent? Yes. Are they wise? Are they charismatic? See the conversation about the scientist. So it's going to be a +2 intelligence. And there we go. Alright, and that finishes up all the classes as such. However, there's these acorn classes, but we're not getting into those. Test classes, retired classes, and then I don't have these in the list here. Okay, hold on a second. because these, I believe, all came from the same edition. And they are essentially the same thing as classes, but I could be wrong. Give me just a second to search for this. So I'm going to look for talents. See if I can find this. Right, Bloomborough. That was the one that it supposedly came from. Okay. I think that I can skip these. I think that I can skip these entirely. And the reason why is because I pulled up one of them. So here we go. I can't scroll it up any further, but this is the builder's talent. And even though you can't see the card's name, you can see down here, apparently these talents are enchantments. These look similar to what was the card? It was like a lore or a story or something like that. Or maybe not even that. Either way, the talent just levels up, and this is not a creature. This does not give any kind of stat bonus or ability bonus or anything like that. In fact, this one just says when builder's talent enters, create a 0/4 white wall creature token with defender. Which is great. Okay, now we know what it does. However, I have stats for walls. It was the last thing we did in this column. So for a wall, we're making a 0/4 white wall creature. And that just means that we're going to make a token, or we're going to make a creature. No bonuses, and you get to shade or size it due to how many levels you have. So great. And Knight says it's sort of like a saga, but not quite. PC Unicorn says you're thinking of sagas, but they are the same as class cards. Yeah, so yeah, sagas, that was it. And then, of course, at level 2, if you pay 1, whenever one or more non-creature, non-land permanent you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, which includes the wall. And if you pay 5, when this class becomes level 3, return target non-creature, non-land permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is cool. This builder talent thing, love it. It's great. However, it's not a creature, and it doesn't give stats. And so there's nothing for me to do about this. Okay. Since that's that's pretty much all of these, because all of these are going to be enchantments, these are all just not applicable. I guess that's why they're not actually shown under the class listings. There was another place that I saw the classes, or these listed with the classes, but I'm not on that page right now. Okay, so I don't have to worry about those. Great! Fantastic! You know what that means? It means we're done. It means that we are done with all of these, which means that now, when we come back here to these, and we grab the little mini sheet here and say we're going to make a character that fits this, we can. And we can start right down here. What is the character? And what is the strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma? And from these 6 stats, we can derive everything else. And I was even tinkering around with it, and I made a new character over here, the Rust Goliath, because I want to say, what is the strongest common card that my players could pick? Turns out it's the Rust Goliath. It costs 10, it's a 10/10 card. And so we did that. Well, no, we didn't do that. I did that. The point is, though, that we've got lots of creatures here that are made, and they're working out well. This is going to be good. So, with this being done, let me get back to your question there, PC Unicorn. Random thought, as an RP sense, could you summon something to speak to an NPC? Something might identify with more or be intimidated by? That is a very complicated question because we have to go back to what is a creature. Now again, when we come back here and we look at this, we establish that these all get their own creature type. They're called echoes. And they're called echoes because they're not real creatures. When we compare this with other classes that can summon animals, if you are a wizard or a sorcerer or a summoner, when you summon a creature, you summon real creatures. You open gateways. You open portals into other planes, and you actually bring those creatures from where they were to where you are. And so it is the actual creature, and if you wanted to, yes, you could definitely do that. If you are a divine caster, you don't do that. If you are a divine caster and you're summoning monsters, you have to remember how divine spells work. See, a sorcerer is actually a magical being. They literally have magic suffused into their blood. If you are a divine caster, you are literally asking favors from Daddy. And so when a divine caster, a cleric, a paladin, whatever, casts summon monster, they're actually requesting that their god send them the monster. And generally speaking, they do. So you can request that, say, a pack of dogs be sent to you, and congratulations, your god, whoever it happens to be, will just conjure some dogs into existence and deliver them straight to you. And so there you go. You've got your creatures. And they are real creatures because your god just created them just like every god created life before them. Then you have nature casters. We're talking druids, rangers, people like that. Nature casters, when they cast summon animal, or call animal rather, that's what they're doing. They're literally calling an animal. If that animal is not native to where you are, the magic that they're using can literally bridge the distance. Imagine it like walking through two rooms. Except instead of walking through two rooms, you're walking through two biomes. You want to summon a lion? Okay, well that lion takes one step in the savannah, and its next step is in a forest, at your side. That's how nature summoning works. However, you are not doing that. The reason why planeswalkers can summon pretty much anything they want is because their creatures aren't real. They might look real, but as I've described them before, if you were to take a summon from a planeswalker and cut it in half, it would be like cutting a clay figure in half. No matter how detailed it looks on the outside, and no matter how realistic it may behave, when you cut it in half, you realize that there's nothing inside. It's just solid clay. Or in this case, solid mana. And this is where things get complicated, because when you ask, could you have a summon speak for you? There's two answers to that. And it may come down to a series of dice rolls. Number one, can a summon speak? The answer to that is no. Summons cannot speak. Why? Because even though a summon may have a mouth, it has no vocal cords, it has no lungs. It has nothing inside of it. It has none of the appropriate parts that it needs to speak. And so how could it? But at the same time, it also has no muscles and no bones, but it can still move. And so, if the creature you encountered speaks, and you can recall it speaking, then technically, it should be able to speak. Because we're not dealing with biology here, we're dealing with magic. This means that if you wanted to use a summoned creature to do negotiating on your behalf, it would probably involve some kind of concentration check to puppet your summon in such a way that you would be able to make it talk. And that's really the best answer that I can give. This is an incredibly complicated question and could be incredibly situational. Because there's really no other way to decide how that would work. These things mimic whatever you've seen them do. And they do so poorly. I had to explain that. Because, again, I was working with the AI and explaining the system and how it works and asking for feedback on it. And as I described it, we went through and I made right here Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. This is an Eldrazi. And when you play this, Emrakul comes in. It's a colossal-sized creature, which means that it is... Well, let's see. It's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 by 25. So it's going to be a 5 by 5 creature on the grid. With a reach to match. We've got all of its stats here. Its stats are enormous. It's got 25s across the board. Not to mention, it still has all of its standard abilities. You can't counter it. When it comes out, you get to take another turn. It has protection from multicolored creatures and Annihilator 6, which means that every single turn that it is out, if there are other echoes on the field, it simply annihilates them. But why is that? Well, as I explained to the AI, and as I'll explain here, this is not Emrakul. This is the echo of Emrakul that you are fighting. Okay? You can't actually summon the legitimate Eldrazi, whatever you want to call it. Just Eldrazi, I guess. You can't actually summon it. And as such, this is your pale recreation of what the Eldrazi is. And why is that? Because when the actual Eldrazi steps out of the spaces between the planes and steps foot into a plane, they literally unravel reality with every single footstep. I mean, they take a step and the ground begins to separate into its constituent parts of energy. I mean, the grasses begin to break down into green mana. The water in the soil begins to break down into blue mana. The rocks begin to break down into red mana, etc., etc. Every single step that they take literally warps reality around them. Your version doesn't necessarily do that. I mean, and that's assuming that you could summon it, because in order to summon Emrakul, you would first have to see and survive Emrakul. Point being, though, that these things are always a pale imitation, and getting one to talk for you would be difficult. Not impossible, which is why I say it may require a concentration check. But it's not a bad idea. You could. You absolutely could do that. And so that may be a rule that we have to insert. If I come down here to Echo type traits, I can go ahead and introduce this and just say that in order for them to talk, they are non-vocal. Speaking requires a concentration check. And there we go. Now, I'll probably have to specify that'll be a concentration check that you make, because you are controlling your creature like a puppet. But we can still make that work. We can still make that work. So okay, that's it though. We're done with creatures. That was a hell of a lot of work, but we did it. So what are we doing next? I don't know necessarily yet. There's a few things that I have to do. One of the things that I want to do is I want to go back and revisit the Planeswalker here because I want to change some things. I've got a good thing going here. One of the things that I'm thinking about doing, though, is removing the limit on how many spells per turn a Planeswalker can cast. The way that I had done this before is when we went to spells, I had made it so, yeah, right here. Permanents, let's see, permanents, creatures, see creatures, artifacts, see artifacts, battles, see battles. Oh yeah, we still need to do artifacts and battles. Those should not take very long. For artifacts, I just need to establish, you know, what the artifact is and what it does. I mean, weapons will be weapons, armors will be armors, etc., etc. Battles will actually change the environment that you're in. However, down here, I've got instants, sorceries, and enchantments, and I said that instants are immediate actions. And they are. They will continue to be immediate actions. However, sorceries, enchantments, and creatures being standard actions. I thought about that a lot, and I'm disagreeing with myself. Because, and the reason why is because, in Magic the Gathering, part of the game is your action economy and your land usage. For example, if I have, say, my deck, and I have a red burn deck, and I have a lot of goblins in there. I have a lot of goblins in there that cost 1 to play. I have a lot of goblins that cost 2 to play. And that's fine. It's a burn deck. It does not need to be really super heavy on creatures. It needs creatures primarily as blockers. Because of that, if I have 5 lands out, it is absolutely nothing for me to tap all 5 of my lands and say, I'm going to play 2 Raging Goblins, which each cost 1 apiece, and a Goblin Chariot, which costs 3. Okay? I'm going to cast 3 creatures in my 1 turn. And that's not just okay by the rules, this is literally encouraged. Because, yeah, I could, if I had a card that could take 5, I could play 1, you know, card that costs 5 to play, or I can get a whole bunch of creatures out that I might need as blockers. If I was restricted to playing only 1 creature card per turn, or 1 spell per turn, number 1, it would make it a very different game. Very different game. Comboing would basically be dead. And number 2, it would almost entirely render having more than 5 mana completely pointless in like almost every deck. I mean, you wouldn't need it. Having more land and access to more mana is a huge benefit to you. It lets you play more spells more quickly. And the Planeswalkers should respect that. In addition, as we discussed last time, briefly at the end of the at the stream, the mana system that we have right here. If I have, like, say, an example ocean here, and I have an ocean that has 4 white mana in it, 12 blue mana, 1 black, 1 red, or 4 red and 2 green. Who cares if there is only 1 black mana if you can only cast 1 spell per turn? And I thought really, really hard about this because I have to think about the opposite side. If there's only one black mana available, right here, if there's only one black mana and you happen to be a black planeswalker, then you can play your one spell and who cares? The only thing you're going to come against in a problem is if you have a black spell that costs 2 black specifically. But that's really rare. Instead, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brakes off, and you are allowed to cast as many spells per turn as you have mana. Now, what is this going to do? This is going to make planeswalkers extremely broken in one way. They will be able to dump spells. However, we also have to consider that they have the same limitations that other spellcasters have as well, and that they only have a certain number of spells per day. Meaning that you, as a planeswalker, could dump all of your spells at once. And if you do so, you may have just robbed yourself of any future versatility because now you have no spells left. Maybe you needed some direct damage spells, but you burned it all up on creature cards. Maybe you need those creatures and you burned it all up on direct damage. I don't know. But that's what I'm considering, because we just went through and did all those creatures, and you're going to want to summon a bunch of creatures. Well, now it's going to make the landscape a lot more interesting, because if you're on this example ocean, if you are a black spellcaster now, if you're a black planeswalker, you're screwed. You are just so screwed. You can cast one of your black spells and that's it. If you're a blue caster though, and there's 12 available to you, oh boy. If you have one creature that costs let's just say 1 blue and then 1 of any mana, you can summon 12 of them, according to this. And do we have 12 here remaining? 4 and 4 is 8, is 10, is 11. Okay, so there's only 23 mana here. 12 of that is blue. So, if you're a blue spellcaster and you want to summon, say, a whole bunch of Sage Owls. Hold on. I know the Sage Owl. I love the Sage Owl. Sage Owl. Here we go. Aw, the newer art looks even better. I want new Sage Owls. Now I feel sad. I want new Sage Owls. Anyway, Sage Owl here. It costs 1 plus blue. You could cast 11 of them. And you would only be limited because you actually ran out of other mana first. So, I mean, there you go. It also depends on how much you're allowed to have, because, yeah, I'm going to have to rewrite the limits because I had it in here before that you were limited in the number of mana that you could have per turn. But I may have to change the column up, because if we can summon multiples of creatures like that, then we may need to replace this with a different system. I don't know. It's going to need some work. JP says if they use all of their mana, if the next player has or plays a mana drain of some kind, does the player 1 go negative? No. And mostly that's because mana drain doesn't really exist. And that's something that we can get into more in the next one, but to put things into perspective, mana drain doesn't exist. What we have in Magic the Gathering instead is land destruction. Something as simple as just like a demolish card can destroy a land. But what does that mean for us? If you play a demolish card and you want to demolish, say, a swamp, are you actually removing the swamp? I don't think so. Instead, though, what we would be doing is we would be removing that one point in this area. So the one singular black ley line that gives, any black magic here at all, we're annihilating it. It's gone. And now this area is completely dead to black magic. That is a very bad thing for a variety of reasons. And like I said, when we get back into this, we can do that more because I actually have all those reasons up here. And we're going to need to convert this into a table of consequences, essentially. Because if you remove the black, then you're also removing power, self-interest, death, sacrifice, and uninhibitedness. That actually sounds really good at first, until you realize that without power, you have essentially disorder, or a lack of power, nothing moves, I'm not even sure. Without self-interest, people stop doing things because it doesn't help them. Without death, all you have is eternal suffering. Without sacrifice, nobody takes risks. And without uninhibitedness, all you have is people that are too afraid to actually step outside. So if you remove black from an entire area, it'll have a lot of knock-on effects. Not just the fact that you can't cast a zombie. No, you've actually thrown the entire area into chaos. But we can talk about that more another time. For right now, it's time for me to get out of here. I gotta get some other things done. We've gone over our time a little bit, but it was good. So, when we get back to this next time, like I said, we need to revisit Planeswalkers, we need to revisit the mana system, we need to revisit the spell system and make a few adjustments. Also, artifacts. Need to figure out how we're going to translate those. Should be pretty easy. We'll have to specify, like, if it's a sword, if it's a weapon, if it's an armor, I think. I don't know. Like I said, we have to look at them because there are an awful lot of artifacts out there that need to be dealt with. And not all of them are going to be equipment. Artifact creatures we've already got done. But what about just like regular artifacts? I don't know. That's what we'll have to go ahead and discuss next time. So, if you want to be here for that discussion, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified every time that we do these videos. If you know somebody else who's also into either Pathfinder or Magic the Gathering, then share this video with them, because they'll probably enjoy it. But if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, then leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. In particular, if you want to leave comments and play with us, because playing with us would be fun. Don't just leave a comment down below, join the Discord. There's a Discord. Join the Discord, come to the Behind the Screen channel, and we'll fit you into a game. I need to know what game you want to play and what your availability is. As soon as I can make a group, the game will begin. So join us there. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you next week as we move into, well, whatever it is we're doing. Planeswalkers, spells, stuff. We're doing more stuff next week. I hope to see you there, and until then, take care.